Yo, it's a ScarJo AI debacle. Headlines made it colossal. Deepfake text gone wild, turning cool into hostile. They took Scarlett's face, put it in a disgrace, used AI to replace, yet it was all out of place. ScarJo is caught in the middle of an AI riddle. Her image used without a legal acquittal. It's a digital crime in this new tech time. AI's got to be used right, not crossing the line. In this age of machine with the line to get blurred, consent is a must. No matter you get heard, from deepfakes to fakes, the tech's gotta respect, protect identities, keep it all in check.
That's the wrap. I love it.
Awesome. I'm Sarah Nagle. I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Wellbeing.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest AI developments and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize AI.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we'll help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today.
Hey, Chad, how's it going? What are you up to?
I'm doing good. Doing a little prep for, in 2 weeks, be speaking at the Brand Innovators AI Conference in New York City, across like 3 days. So it's at Paramount.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So doing.
Are you going to be moderating, or are you in a panel? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, I think moderating one, and then like the featured speaker of one. We're going to talk about AI agents. So we're launching those publicly June 3rd. So it's like in perfect time to talk about it.
Oh, that would be awesome.
What's up with you?
I've just been building agents and playing around with what they've been.
What kind of agents are you building?
I'm building lots of different types of agent. I'm building brand ambassadors. So thinking about if we were to potentially work with different brands, like the personalities that could be related to that. And using those agents as like that they fully understand what the brand is all about, the style, things like that, and then asking them to create stuff. And been playing with that to do some interesting collabs with brands and making shoes and beauty care and like also just like out there kind of crazy things just to see what it can do. And it's pretty unbelievable what the images come back like and how like photorealistic they look and just cool and inspiring.
I love seeing what you're making with them. I mean, it's just a fun activity to kind of free up what is possible. So
yeah.
Awesome.
And I went to design school. I didn't end up becoming a designer out of school. I became more of a researcher and a strategist. But these tools are making me feel like it's giving me that fuel to be a designer, which is so awesome. So it's like I have collecting all this information and learning about people and thinking about the opportunities there, but then able to execute. Like that was where like my job stopped for a long time, and being able to continue and kind of create this stuff is just an amazing way to be able to communicate with other designers. Yeah, so super fun.
To share insights visually. Here's how this could play out across a shoe or a different product or an experience. I mean, it's just a pretty amazing superpower to have now. So it's exciting.
Possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
Okay, coming up, we're going to be sharing an interview with Ricky Shah, who's the Consumer Market Insights Director for Beauty and Wellbeing for Unilever brands. Brands like Dove, Vaseline, Nexus, Tresemme, and Pond's. But first, let's talk about what's in the headlines. Scarlett Johansson and OpenAI. We've been seeing a lot about this. But she's shocked and angered over the new ChatGPT voice called Sky. So the way that it kind of all played out is OpenAI reached out to her to ask her to participate or, record her voice to be this Sky voice. She thought about it, said no. Then they came back the 11th hour, asked her again. She said no. And then Sam Altman tweeted her and then it became public and, people were pretty excited about it. But there was I think it was because he tweeted her, people started thinking about what does the voice sound like? And it sounded somewhat like Scarlett Johansson. And so she was pretty upset about it. She had her legal team look into kind of where did it come from? How was it developed? Because there was enough of a likeness to her voice. So it didn't actually turn out to be her. They didn't copy her voice. They had another voice actress help create that voice. But she's still, pretty upset about it. And for me, it just seems like it's just a little shady, of OpenAI to ask and then create something that's kind of very similar to her. And then also, the relationship with like her and Scarlett Johansson. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, you run a tech company. We have to be really, careful about the things that we do.
The tech we're building is extremely powerful. It's incredible. I know we get amazing results out of it every single day that we're using it. But it also comes with all different kinds of responsibilities and safeguards we have to put in place as we're building. And this was kind of another example of, we need to be explicit with getting consent from people if we're trying to create something that isn't just in the likeness, but it is, it's trying to recreate or create a copy of it. Now, whether it sounds like her or is based off of her, I mean, that's all going to play out in, not on this pod, it'll play out in, some in the public and some in private discussions. But just doing that, if it was a copy, obviously feels wrong because there was no explicit consent, even though you've asked multiple times for it. Separately for us, I think we have to continue to hold those safeguards in place, continue with, as we're building things, just making sure we're having open, honest discussions internally, double checking things, and also just take a lot of the things that are happening in the outside world and internalize them, talk about them, and then see how it impacts our policy. But as any creative knows who's worth their salt, you're pulling inspiration from all different kinds of places. And we're not in a spot where you copy paste things and that feel okay. We need to, pull a bunch of inspiration in, talk about it, collaborate on it, and then use it as inspiration to create your own and original thing. That's, I think, those are the people, the things, the experiences we all love, is they feel unique, original, and different. But we all know, just because we're creatives, that you pull inspiration from all different kinds of places. Mm-hmm. It's just, it feels wrong when you can clearly pull apart that experience and say, oh, you took this from here. You took that from this other place. That's when creativity goes wrong.
And very bold to tweet her.
I don't know what to say about that one.
Also, coming from Hollywood, Meta and Google are in discussions with studios to use their content to improve their AI video generation models. So they're looking to strike deals with some of the biggest studios so they can access the content to be able to train, improve, and refine their models. This feels better than kind of the ScarJo where whatever happened there. This feels good because there's actually deals. People are being they're someone's getting paid, like the studios are getting paid, or the actors or whoever is getting paid for their likeness.
Obviously, it's in their best interest to create technology that makes a lot of this easier to produce, not so cost intensive, laborious, all those kinds of things. So yes, I'm sure they have been doing this for a little while and trying to strike a deal. I think the interesting part about it is, is it going to be for internal only use, or is it going to be for the consumer world? And now I can create my own stories.
Up next, Biden robocalls. And this is in the lovely state of New Hampshire. So Steve Kramer, as a political consultant, he sent out a number of AI generated robocalls to New Hampshire voters. And I was telling you that I think I have
Did you
voicemails.
Get one?
I got a zillion robocalls. I don't usually answer them if I know like a particular number, like a 603 number, I won't answer.
It didn't
generally
say Biden is calling when it popped up. No.
Joe. It just said Joe.
Joe B.
But I think I do have some voicemails that are just kind of went right to voicemail. But basically I was telling voters not to vote ahead of the presidential elections. And the FCC has said this is the first of its kind involving AI. And they have, they've issued Kramer with a $6 million fine. Also, Lingo Telecom, which is the telecom company that transmitted the robocalls, they sued them or they gave them a $2 million fine. So I don't know. I'm glad that they're kind of stopping this. I mean, it probably will show up in some other form, I imagine, as we get closer to the elections. But I don't know, just kind of setting a bit of a precedent, I guess, here in the lovely state of New Hampshire.
Yeah, it's all right. You guys are very progressive up there. So
Yeah, it calls from AI all the time. And then last up, Google AI glitches. So there are some glitches in the new search. And the big story that came out was around a recipe to make pizza and how AI suggested that you put Elmer's glue was like a quarter cup of Elmer's glue on your
Yum.
pizza.
Yum. Love it.
But just
You don't put glue on your pizza?
Depends on what I'm really trying to make.
Yeah,
and
you
got to
keep those toppings on. You don't want them to fall off.
Just one of many mistakes, that was coming out of this new feature. Some of the other things that came out were James Madison graduated from the University of Wisconsin 21 times, a dog that has played in the NBA, NFL, and NHL, and Batman is a cop. Yeah. So, I mean, there's going to be glitches.
I'm just stuck on this like Elmer's innovation. So, let's start generating some images of like the pepperoni flavored glue and.
Oh yeah.
Can we go there? Marinara. You want some marinara on your craft project?
I want to see the faces of the people eating it, like what, like stuck in their mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds great. It's great inspiration.
We want
for
pizza.
The future of food.
Yeah, but I will say some of the innovation within the browser of some of search, getting responses, it is super helpful, and you can see very clearly that it's at least for me, my user behavior. Like I'm not clicking through to a bunch of different things to explore. Mm-hmm. You're kind of like search and get an answer.
Okay, now let's get to our interview with Ricky Shah, where we're going to be talking about the depiction of beauty, the role of AI in research and innovation, and we're actually going to get him to rap about Scarlett Johansson and OpenAI.
Yeah, I hope he's good. So we'll see. But big disclaimer, Unilever and Ricky are both customers of Verve. Just excited to talk to him about the role of insights and how he sees that evolving, and really the future of what AI looks like, both at the company, the industry, and also for consumers. So let's do it.
Hey, Ricky, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
How is London treating you?
I mean, the weather is shining and it's hot and it's super sunny, so I cannot complain. That's
true. That's wonderful. We would love to hear a little bit about your past experience in your career, because currently you lead research insights for Unilever. So we'd love to hear about the current position, but also just how did you get there and what did you do prior to Unilever?
Yeah, so for sure. So look, I mean, I've spent my entire career, that's nearly coming up to 20 years, right? Like I still qualify as a millennial, I've been told. But for the last 20 years working in insights across a whole number of different organizations, industries, ranging from my first job was in insight, but in retail, and that was kind of back in the day when pen and paper surveys were still a thing, right? Like, and you imagine kind of how that would even be today, that to think we had to actually go out with a clipboard and a pen and a paper and then manually type up and code the data. My God.
I think we've all done that. Yeah.
That was back in the day. So right the way through to kind of working in all manner of industries, from everything from kind of drinks to bakery to hair care to oral care to skincare to I don't know what else, right? Like I think the only thing I haven't touched is baby care, actually. So I've not gone there yet, and pretty much, working on I guess your kind of classic-y kind of insight-y stuff. So iconic kind of advertising campaigns for brands like Dove, and really my passion is in disruptive innovation. So I've worked on things like one of the first hot coffee in a can. So imagine you can go into a store and you pick up the coffee and it's actually hot when you have it in the can. That was one of the ideas that I've worked on.
Yeah.
And hair care products made from insane ingredients, like hair care made from algae, for example, kind of the stuff that I've been working on. So today, I'm the director of innovation insight for Unilever's beauty business, which means that I spend my time doing what I love, which is working with consumers and brands and marketeers and cross functions to create disruptive innovations, as well as disruptive capability building within CMI, or consumer market insight. So that means I might spend my time doing what I love, which is like literally getting on the front line with consumers. Yes, I still get to do a little bit of that. And figuring out what is the unmet need or the unmet desire, ideating with my teams on what might be the next cool thing that we should be creating, or working with partners like yourselves on like what's next for innovation capability. How should we be leveraging our tools and technology to create better, deeper, richer consumer insight that unlocks bigger, better, bolder innovation? It's a kind of classic components of my job today.
Yeah. So Ricky, we have a short past, just collaborating together the last couple of years, and full disclaimer, like Unilever is a customer. Ricky and I collaborate on a bunch of different things, but it's just been an interesting journey over the last couple of years of how the world of research and insights has changed. From kind of the pandemic where everybody got comfortable with video and doing things remote and asynchronous, to where we're at in the age of AI. And would love for you to maybe share a little bit of just your perspective on that, kind of on that journey, on that jump to where we're at today.
I think this is it, right? I think research has evolved significantly over the last years, right? And I think I remember when we used to value, things like focus groups, spending the time in an artificial environment in a conference room around a table with some stale sandwiches, showing consumers a PowerPoint and saying, "Do you like this? Can you point to the bits that you don't like?" And it's so far away from that actual lived consumer experience, the thing that they're kind of experiencing, their actual behavior. There's a say-do gap, and researchers have always known that there's a say-do gap, but it's been difficult to find the tools, the methodologies, the approaches to overcome that. Now, with the advent of technology and with the advent of solutions that we work with, we're able to close that gap. We're able to get much more closer to what they're really thinking, feeling, and doing, and therefore create better ideas and outcomes as a result. So technology enables that significantly, because we are now able to see what couldn't be seen before. We're able to measure what couldn't be measured before. We're able to get consumers now to start generating the outcomes, whereas before we would ask them, now they will tell us. And that is just the biggest shift, I think, that I've seen in how this industry has been working with consumers and seeking to understand consumers. No longer are they the recipient of our questions. They are our collaborators, our creators, our conspirators. They are the source of our inspiration. And I think that that's the shift that we've been trying to adopt within beauty and wellbeing.
Yeah, and I would say, for beauty care, and I don't know if you agree with this, but it is kind of one of those industries or categories that is always looking for kind of the new experience, because you have such a passionate group of people that you're collaborating with. I don't know if you see that on your side as well, as like other categories kind of looking to you as kind of what's happening here, and then distill it across the organization.
I think so. I mean, innovation in beauty is such an important part of the industry, right? So, we can see the innovation cadence. If I think about other categories that I've worked in other organizations, I can absolutely see that beauty as a category is much more driven by innovation, because there's a lot of technological advances that come. We're able to create better, more effective products. Consumers are much more attuned and engaged with the category. They actively seek out information. And all of that kind of combines together to create a category that is significantly more innovation driven, for sure.
Yeah. And I know with us working together, we're kind of bringing video and human expression, into the organization. And then as AI has picked up a lot of steam over the last, year or two, just curious how you see AI specifically evolving some of that research process, just across the whole industry.
Yeah, it's a great question, right? So fundamentally, I think of AI as, I guess, a bit of an enabler, right? So it helps us to do things in a way that is simpler, faster, more effective. And I think that there's many ways in which AI is helping us to do that within the overall kind of research flow. For example, it can help us to understand much more crisply what we kind of already know. We have a famous saying internally, if only Unilever knew what Unilever knew. And that's something which has come up in many organizations that I've worked in, many FMCGs, where we have such huge amounts of knowledge that's been created over years, but it's living on someone's laptop or it's living in a SharePoint somewhere where people don't have access to. AI helps us to synthesize and accelerate the process of really mining and understanding what we know. So when we do put out a new research brief, it's building on that knowledge. It's helping us to accelerate the creation of clear hypotheses. AI also helps us to accelerate the research process itself. There are many cases that I've seen where we've got AI conducting research or helping to formulate the questions that we should be speaking to, or helping us to simulate the respondent kind of outcomes. But the best use cases that I've seen have been where we take that one step forward into implication. So not just summarizing or interpreting what consumers want or what they're saying, but then helping to create and generate solutions to that, which means that we shortcut that jump from what's the business need or the objective to what should the business do as a result. Because research is all about informing the commercial outcome or fulfilling the commercial objective. It's never a thing just for knowledge's sake. And so what AI is able to help us to do now is it's able to accelerate the process of us getting to that commercial outcome by shortcutting some of those processes.
Is there a particular part of that you're most excited about personally?
What I've seen, the pace of development kind of within AI in the last few years has just been truly phenomenal. Now, candidly, I think it's not true to say that AI is a new thing. AI has been prevalent in FMCG for many, many, many years. It's just hit a critical mass in the last kind of few years. So the thing that I'm most excited about is the democratization and the scalability of some of these solutions today. Why? Because in the past we've had AI solutions that have been extremely powerful but not scalable or not widely adopted, and that means that their impact has been limited. And what I'm all about, and what I think is the most important thing, is that the solutions that we create and the outcomes that we create structural impact. They create impact at scale. That's the key way in which we're going to create commercial impact with the work and the tools that we do. With that said, some of the technological advances in AI today, they're getting more and more exciting by the day, right? Like everything that I see from GPT 3.5 to 4 to now 4. I don't know if it's 4.0 or 4.0. Somebody's going to have to tell me, right? But it's
4.0.
4.0.
Yeah.
There you go. Right. So what each model is able to do and how we're able to use is just becoming so much more powerful. And with the latest kind of video generation technologies, etc. And I don't know, it starts to get to a place where now, probably we'll come on to ethics in a moment, but there's a whole bunch of things that we kind of need to worry about there. But it's exciting, the pace of change.
How does it, I guess, for someone who's worked in insights, is it giving you a different maybe set of tools in your toolbox to communicate?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely giving a different set of tools to kind of communicate. And I think folks have been used to, as in my stakeholders have been used to research insights that's come through a specific workflow over many, many years. And I think what you're kind of asking is like, how do we actually use AI, or how do we communicate the benefits of AI, or how do we communicate the outputs of AI in a way that's kind of acceptable or brings the business kind of with us? And I think it's a great question. It's honestly, it's not a straightforward one. Even this week, I was in a conversation with a stakeholder about, well, no, I really want to speak with consumers, Ricky. Yeah, but we can do this in a way that is good as, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that it comes down to folks not necessarily having experience or knowledge or knowing what to do with the outcomes. And then there's a huge education piece that organizations need to invest in order to be able to communicate the benefits and the solutions of AI.
I want to ask about something that I think we're all passionate about on this call, and it's prompting. Curious about some of the best practices. So when you have this information and then you want to figure out kind of what do you do with it, you're talking about creation. Do you have any kind of tips, tricks, best practices when you think about prompting to be able to create these, awesome experiences or solutions?
Yeah, for sure. My favorite tip that I tell everybody is honestly treat the AI as if it's a 5-year-old child. Like seriously. Give it step-by-step instructions. Give it feedback. Tell if it's doing something that's not good enough. It doesn't have any feelings, right? It's a machine. So if it's not good enough, tell it and ask it to redo something that hasn't worked. So why I say treat it as if it was a 5-year-old child. Imagine if you give your child this complex multi-step instruction kind of all at once. You're going to get gibberish as outcome, right? Because the 5-year-old cannot compute. You have to take things very step by step and logically. So if you do that with AI, you're going to get a much better outcome. So typically I would ask it to adopt a persona, I'd ask it to complete a task, I'd ask it to critique its own outcome of that task, and then do it again, addressing its own kind of foibles in relation to that task. And that, as a basic kind of workflow, seems to work quite well for me. But the most important thing is really just break it down into baby steps. And that seems to work.
And how important is being kind of, so there's the step-by-step and asking it simple things, but how important is kind of the human creativity and kind of like asking it to do like really interesting things to like create something new?
It's really important. I would say that it's creativity and critical thinking ability that are equally important when you're thinking about how we can on how we should be prompting, right? Because AI by definition is limited in its ability to think through cultural relevance, emotional subtleties, and these kinds of nuances, contextual relevance, and so on and so forth, right? And so your creativity is critical in bringing those aspects into the prompt and into your interpretation of the outcome and the follow-on prompt that you kind of bring kind of alongside that. It's also about you being able to see, it's a famous saying, if you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. It's your own creative ability to be able to see the problem from different angles and prompt from those different angles that's also going to help you to get to a different or a better outcome as well. Again, unless you ask the AI explicitly, it's going to come at it from a angle, and actually what you probably want to do is prompt it from multiple different angles. And I think that's where the creative aspect really comes into its own.
Could you offer any advice to, other folks within other organizations that may want to use AI for creative brainstorming, within kind of potentially alone or within a group of people? And can you talk about like how you use it in a setting like that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a few different angles to kind of go at it there, right? I think first is honestly give it a go, right? Start there. There are many free systems and tools that you can go to give it to try it yourself in a safe kind of environment, because it can feel quite intimidating if you haven't done it before and you're kind of trying to do it for the first time and you're in a setting where other folks around you who are inexperienced who do not know. So give it a go in your own time, because you can use GPT 3.5 for free, right? Anybody can go onto OpenAI's website and give it a go. So by giving it a go in that setting and trying out the various kind of creative exercises that you might ordinarily do in a creative brainstorm, you can start to see how the AI is going to kind of react to that. I think what I found typically is that AI in creative brainstorming is, honestly, to me, it's a real liberation, right? Because we often have these creative exercises that we do, like imagine if Apple did X, or imagine if Rihanna did Y, or whatever. These are the classic things that always kind of come up, right? But now we can do them at speed and at scale. And what we can also use AI to do is, rather than having like a low fidelity kind of guy sat in the corner sketching out something which, kind of at a distance, if you squint, looks like how if Apple were to create a new shampoo, it would look like. Well, now you've actually got
on a Post-it like this big.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're coming to review in a week's time when somebody, usually me, has to write up the outputs of that creative brainstorming. You're kind of looking at it going, what are we thinking, right? What were we thinking? Well, the benefit of AI is that all of those things are now shortcut, right? Because no longer do you have to interpret Post-it notes of thing or rough sketch, which you need to have had an entire day's worth of cupcakes and bad sandwiches to be able to interpret, right? You can see the actual outcome because you can use generative AI to create that specific kind of outcome. So you're not limited by the attention span and sugar intake of any workshop attendee anymore.
Yeah.
So we actually use generative AI quite extensively when we're doing kind of consumer co-creation sessions. And this is one of the things that Chad and I kind of did together. It was so amazing to see when we were brainstorming with the consumers their ideas immediately come to life, because then we can confront them with the ideas and they can react to the ideas. And it means that this sequential iterative recycling that we would have done in the past, but it would have taken us a week, we did in 45 minutes.
Yeah,
45 minutes to get to the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing just having that iterative flow, just like you're in, when you're truly creating together, you don't want to like, hold on a second, let me disappear, get a designer involved, and then come back tomorrow and then see what you think. Like within seconds, just being able to visualize something very fast helps so much to go through those iterations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other thing that I find quite helpful is if you have got a bit of a creative block, it's actually quite fun to spend a bit of time prompting AI with some slightly ludicrous kind of prompts, which helps to often overcome some of those kind of creative blocks. It puts you in a bit more of a kind of creative mind. So I guess in summary, I genuinely think that AI can be a tool for creative genius, right? It can be a tool to enhance creativity in a creative brainstorming. It requires us to face into our own fears about the use of technology within that. But once you overcome them, it's a lot of fun. But in the end, it's only as good as what we tell it to do. It's no substitute for vision or strategy. So as long as we're clear on what we want to get out of that creative brainstorming session, I think it's going to be a great outcome. But if we're not clear on that, then no AI in the world is going to help save that session.
Do you guys have any prompts that you use to like kind of for that, like to unlock the creative block for yourselves? For me, and Chad knows this, I always have it write poems for me about something wacky. Do you guys have any
like
go-tos?
As a starting point?
No, just like kind of like if I just need some inspiration or something. I don't know. I always, I create poems.
Yeah, I think poems are great. I used it to create a rap the other day.
Are you gonna rap it right now?
Definitely not. No. I'll send it to you offline. You can have it. You can watch it. But no, I mean, it was in the context where where I was trying to find a way to make a bit of a pitch for consumer intimacy and consumer research not being the same thing. And I was thinking this content is really dry. Like, right, let's create a rap. So, we created a rap, and actually it was really, really good because actually it helped me to clarify in my own mind, like how we can get the points away in an engaging way. Now, am I going to go to my leadership meeting and do a rap? No. But now do I have like some messages?
In your head.
Yeah, absolutely. I also really like pop culture references and asking AI to think through the problem through the lens of a pop culture kind of situation, context, or character. What if Taylor Swift did X, or what if The Simpsons thought Y, or any of this kind of stuff, because the outcomes are usually quite silly, but they help again just to unblock a mental block and this kind of self-imposed barrier of what you think is feasible and possible, because you're often operating with your own day-to-day kind of guardrails and constraints, and AI can help us just to overcome those through the ludicrousy of some of the outcomes that we can create.
Yeah, I mean, just the whole idea of like, I think kind of back in the day, and we're referring to like last year, it was like insights were PowerPoint slides. Yeah. It was bullet points, it was graphs, it might be a video, but we all know insights aren't necessarily reserved to that. I think you can show them as visuals and stories, and like that's when they're the most impactful in the business. And so I'm just excited, that especially like our industry, who is inherently asking questions, that it's almost like prompts are just collaborating across consumers and agents and all different kinds of things, is a little bit more inherent in kind of what we do every day. So just excited to see, more and more teams start to embrace what this looks like. I want to jump cut a little bit to some of the things that came out recently of just how, and this is kind of in the world of beauty care and also in the consumer world of just the depiction of beauty. I think there's been a lot of news articles out there, also some really I'd say kind of progressive approaches to brands like Dove coming out with just the vow for real beauty, which was very pioneering 20 years ago around how people are visualized, talked about, celebrated, and very quick to explore that within the age of AI. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really really important topic, actually, right? And I tend to think of it as AI as both a fascinating and slightly terrifying look at underneath the hood of our own inherent biases, honestly, right? Because fundamentally, it's trained on the data that is already out there within the world, which already has manifest biases that are kind of built into it. So in a way, it's playing back many of the biases that exist kind of within the world, in my opinion, right? And sometimes these biases are quite subtle, and other times they're very problematic, right? Like I think you referred to the Dove campaign recently, which is an incredibly powerful campaign, which spoke to exactly this point. When you prompt AI to generate images of beauty, oftentimes you are seeing back images that are extremely biased. They're biased because they have a specific depiction of what beauty means because of the underlying training data containing those biases in the first place. And so you have to be incredibly mindful about that. And then to your point, Sarah, before about looking at things from different angles, you have to anticipate that the response that you're going to get has some form of bias within it and actively prompt to overcome those. So in the Dove example, it was like imagine beauty by Dove, or something in this space, and then you start to see the diverse array of beauty. I think that's a lovely example, and there are other prompts that we can use as well to start to kind of overcome that. And it just goes to show we just need to be very mindful of the output that we see, and we need that human lens, again, Sarah, to your point, that human interpretation in order to understand that, yeah, just what I'm getting back might not be the full truth or the accurate depiction of things. Even beyond that, though, I think, there's the depiction of beauty, and then there's also now, Chad, you mentioned how fast the capabilities of AI are evolving, right? And I think some of the potential use cases get even more problematic, where we're starting to see things like deepfakes, etc., where people's voices and images and likeness can be compromised and mimicked in very realistic and quite terrifying ways.
Yeah.
And again, this is something to be extremely aware of, right? Like, again, there's moral and legal ramifications of things like that, very serious ones. But again, it also proliferates quite unrealistic standards and ideals of beauty, right? Like if I can put my head onto the body of some guy who is amazing and proliferate that on social media, then that's self-perpetuating in terms of the data and imagery that is being scraped and liked and so on and so forth. So it's not a great place to kind of be in.
And brands have, I would say, been leading in some of the communication out in the world, as opposed to governments creating laws and policies. I think they're fast following on some of those things, but it's really been brands that have partnered. It's been really close to creating culture. Products, ideas, experiences, like it's all related. But it just seems like brands have an opportunity to be much more proactive about this. And I'm just curious how you see that unfolding, because Dove was, I would say, probably one of the first to do it. But then you also have this other culture around deepfakes and kind of where AI can head. Even some of the recent examples with like OpenAI and Scarlett Johansson's voice, and what is this? And that might be more of a civil matter, but it's also an opportunity for as we're like creating new products and ideas, what's the role of a brand in kind of creating this culture within kind of in the age of AI?
Yeah. It's a very good question. So, look, I mean, in the case of Dove, it's inherent to what that brand stands for, right? So, you mentioned the campaign for real beauty, and I think the campaign for real beauty just turned, 20. And Dove has always stood for normalizing the standards of beauty, and so it's a very natural thing for that brand to engage in this discourse and to have a very clear point of view on beauty standards within AI. It's difficult for me to speak to kind of other brands and what they should stand for. But I think that whatever your point of view, and I think there's the marketing branding aspect, but it needs to be authentic and relevant and true to what the brand is, and then from a legal ethical point of view as well, right? I think marketeers just need to be extremely careful, even more careful. What can seem fun and, playful could actually be something that is crossing a line that should not be crossed. And, it can be very easy to lose sight of that because it's becoming so easy now to participate and prompt in this kind of way. So I guess what I'm saying is I think it is important for brands to be mindful and cognizant. I think in terms of brands taking an active stance, I think it's dependent on the brand and what that brand needs to achieve. As marketeers and as professionals, we have to be extremely ethical and extremely careful in what we choose to do.
Yeah. And I guess as you see kind of these worlds shifting, just curious on maybe the experience around like social media. So social media was more of like post filter and then scroll and consume. And as we're entering in this age where, that might be a way for me to find inspiration like today or yesterday, but is the world of more of the generative side where now I can create my own inspiration. I can create new things. Do you see those types of opportunities, or kind of how everything's shifting for the consumer, where it was about consume and now it's potentially, and maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but it is more around generate or create
and collaborate.
And collaborate. Just curious if you see that from your side.
I think those boundaries have always been blurring, right? Increasingly, there are more and more folks that are actually kind of creating micro influencers, etc., creating content and wanting to be part of something. And I think it's more and more natural for Gen Z, etc., to be kind of part of this, right? So at the start of the call, I'm Mr. Millennial.
I thought you were a millennial.
Yeah, I tried to stay on top of content creation, but if I post on my socials, like once a month, then it's a good month, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a life stage cohort kind of thing, right? Like I can see how people are engaging much more. But even more than that, I think, how folks are using social media, you're right, actually has changed. Social media isn't actually social anymore, if you think about it, right? Like, so if you imagine how social media originated with things like Facebook, that was the classic social media. It was using it to connect with people that on content and topics that you had in common. Now it's no longer social, right? It's actually mass in a way, right?
Like entertainment.
It's entertainment. It's entertainment. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. And actually, I think, TikTok, for example, consider themselves to be an entertainment platform. And they also consider themselves to be a search platform as well. And one of my favorite uses of TikTok is not actually to mindlessly scroll through the content, but to actually use it as my view into the world on specific topics. What's good to do in location X? I'm going on holiday next week, for example, and one of the searches I'm doing is what's good to do in this location. And you get like a really good snapshot of all this content that's been created in that space. So people are using social media in ways that we couldn't possibly have imagined even a few years ago, and it's going to continue to kind of evolve.
What is a product or brand, like for you as a person, you personally, not from a work front, but that you would actually want to create or co-create new ideas with? Is there like a brand or product that you love and you wish they asked to create something new with?
Oh my God, this is such a great question. So look, actually, I was discussing this with somebody this morning, actually. And one of the things that I'm absolutely fascinated by is this whole crazy world of, bear with me, right? This whole crazy world of like ultra high net worth whiskey collections, right? Which is very oddly specific, but it's oddly specific because of the unboxing experiences that you can have with this, which also ties back into the social media point that we were just discussing a minute ago, right? Unboxing experiences are very popular on socials.
Yeah.
And so these $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 bottles of whiskey have like the most elaborate unboxings known to man, involving keys, involving outer boxes, inner boxes, leather bound, this bound, smoke, fire, flames, I don't know, right? And I just imagine that getting involved in creating or having the creative vision for this kind of extravagant packaging kind of experience would be something extremely fun to to do.
All right.
So I'm all in for the brand experiences and brands and companies and people that have a desire to create really outrageous, meaningful, different brand experiences like the one that I just described.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're actually on the Bourbon Trail. So
yeah,
we took Sarah out and a bunch of people out on the Bourbon Trail. It looks like you need to go next. That's what I'm hearing.
It's interesting that those are becoming really popular experiences, and it's probably because there's so many products that are part of our life now. Things get dropped off on our step all the time from Amazon, and just so having the time to be able to stop and actually open that experience, and it would be really cool if putting that out to a number of people to understand how they would then unbox what do they call it, the ubi. We remember that in product design, the out of box experience.
Mm-hmm.
We called it, but just really fun.
Totally. And you know what, and it's something which is going to keep going, right? Like my 9-year-old speaks about unboxing, which is slightly scary, right? But he speaks about the unboxing experience, and he's, I just got him a new device, right? And he said to me, "Dad, don't open it. I'm going to open it." And he's there, and it has all of the kind of the plastic wrap on it, and he's unwrapping it. "Dad, this is so satisfying." I'm like, "Where did you get this language from? Where did you get this from?" It's from social media. It's from YouTube. It's from YouTube. Yeah. It's from YouTube. So,
yeah, my 8-year-old does the same exact thing. Anytime a package comes, she has to run out, grab it. I'm going to open this. Yep. I'm okay. She puts it on the table, very delicate. Because normally a 8-year-old just ripping stuff, and gets out the scissors. I'm going to cut this way. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Well, I'm opening this to see what's inside." And then she'll place it over. I'm like,
"It's for my feed, Dad."
It could be. Yeah, 8-year-old whiskey. No, but I mean, even I gave her I gave her not necessarily a Verbe account, but she's on my laptop, and I have a workspace, and so I'm like, "What do you want to create?" And so just teaching her how to generate stories or generate images, and it was just such a reimagination of I'm sure you're familiar with Legos, but I grew up and it was sit in a room and here are all your Legos and Lincoln Logs and what can you make? And it almost feels like this is the digital version of that, where it's really up to your imagination what you can make now.
Yeah.
And not limited to the little blocks.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
And it could be creating a video, it could be creating a sound, it could be all different kinds of things. I've just been blown away by what she's making. But I'm probably one of the few that has an 8-year-old where I'm teaching her how to, prompt things, but be creative in, the critical thinking of what are you trying to accomplish? What's, here's what I want to do. What are the steps to get there? It's just a different way to, I don't know, a different lesson, I guess.
For sure. And you reminded me of an interesting point, which is that brands, and in particular many children's brands, actually are at the forefront of the combination of technology and play, right? So two brands that come to mind are Lego and Play-Doh, right? Both create branded experiences that are enhanced by technology, right? So, for example, my son has a Mario-themed Lego set, but that actually, when you play with it, is activating a 3D world on an iPad, right? And the same with a Play-Doh set, that actually you create the thing, and then the tablet actually animates your creation in a game. And so these boundaries and these worlds are being blurred, and I think that that's so powerful in terms of creating that branded experience that transcends the physical into the virtual world. And I think, again, we're going to see much, much more of that. I think that, outside of this realm of play, I'd love to see more brands blur those boundaries in that way.
Thinking about kind of in the work setting, what impact do you think that AI will have on kind of the CMI or the consumer insights world in the future? And how will jobs change, or kind of how will CMI evolve?
Yeah, so there's quite a few different kind of angles to that particular question, right? So look, I mean, we started the conversation off speaking about pen and paper, kind of surveys, right? But the reality is that in CMI, as a function, generally speaking, we've always been about pushing the boundaries of what technology can do in terms of our ability to understand consumers and to create kind of business impact. And AI is another example of that, but it's not the only example. I think the first time I was exposed to AI, predictive AI, in the context of CMI was probably about 12, 13 years ago, actually, now, right? So quite a long while ago. It's only that it's really reached critical mass recently. And one of my kind of pet points to make is that my focus is, yes, we need to identify the best-in-class thinking and technologies that are going to help us to create that impact. But I also want to find the right questions to answer, right? Like one of my old bosses used to say, we have the answers. Do you have the questions? To his stakeholders. And I think that this is something which is not going to change when it comes to CMI, because we always have the new tools and the new approaches, but really they're only as good as the questions that we put to those tools, our understanding of the business question, the objective, the commercial outcome that we're seeking to kind of achieve. Otherwise, they're just tools that allow us to get to an answer faster. But if it's the wrong answer or an irrelevant answer, but we've just got to it faster, have we really added value? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Tech is no longer the limiting factor for us, and it hasn't been for quite some time now, right? It's true that we can, we've had overnight research solutions now for actually quite a few years, and now with AI, we've probably got research solutions in hours rather than overnight. So it becomes even faster. But it's fast becoming, in terms of speed, it's a race to the bottom, right? So speed is no longer the discriminating factor in our ability to answer questions.
I mean, one of the things I've been most excited about, specific, to what we're doing, but also kind of the movement around this is, usually out of companies, like the research budgets have always been like the ones that shrank. When insights are such a special part of a company and what makes them extremely unique and where they can create from, that it feels like a new movement or generation of celebrating insights across the entire company. And I know that's been a part of always trying to get other business functions involved in insights and excited as we are on insights, because it really held the answer. It just seems like it's an opportunity for insights to truly kind of run across the whole business. I don't know if you see that happening or your perspective on that.
Yeah, so there's a few angles on that. So one is people don't buy insights, right? We have to be really blunt about that. People buy brands, people buy experiences, people buy products and services. And as long as we have insights that stay at a conceptual insight level or sit on somebody's laptop or don't make it out into the open, there is no value add, there is no revenue, and therefore the possibility to create impact and therefore the need for CMI reduces. So our ability to stay relevant and our ability to command greater impact cross functions and cross the organization is directly linked to our ability to take those insights and turn them into implications and turn them into actions and turn them into opportunities and quantified and tangible opportunities that the business can activate against. So the real power, again, isn't necessarily in the technology that we use to uncover those insights, although it helps, but it's in the human's ability to take those insights and bring them into the business at scale and with impact.
So looking into the future, what role do you think AI will have on the consumer goods industry, like as a whole? How will it evolve, kind of the things that we create, the things that people consume, the stories that we tell?
AI has been integral to the consumer goods industry for at least the last decade, right? I think it's just the recent developments in Gen AI that have just really brought it top of mind, but it's always been there in a way, right? The key thing that I'm seeing is that there's actually quite a proliferation of approaches nowadays, right? So I have to admit, I do get a bit triggered when I meet a new vendor or I meet somebody and the first thing they say to me is, oh, by the way, we're using AI in our solution. Okay, to what outcome, for what differentiation, or for what value kind of add? So I fully expect there's going to be a process of natural selection, of consolidation, of where underperforming or poorly thought out AI applications, or those which are literally just on the hype train, I think they're going to fall by the wayside, right? On the flip side, I think where we've got value-added AI applications that are really proving their worth, that are really helping us to do something with impact at scale, and unleashing new creativity, I think those things are going to be increasingly embedded into our business as usual kind of workflows. People are going to become more accepting of them, kind of from the end to end. And I can imagine that we might see more custom applications that get developed for industries and manufacturers specific kind of competitive advantage, right? Like what I'm trying to achieve in beauty is different to what my competitors are trying to achieve within beauty. And therefore there might be specific applications that cater to those needs. And I think that, solutions are going to be increasingly embedded. And you can see that through just the basics of, Microsoft Copilot and Bing and so on and so forth. These are just being embedded within kind of everyday tools, right? And I think that it's starting to become much more of a kind of, these are probably much more accepted into how people are going about their day-to-day jobs and their day-to-day lives right now. And people are very willing to kind of experiment with it. And I expect that to kind of proliferate. And that will simplify. The truth is, though, is that in order for AI to achieve what it needs to achieve or what it can achieve, organizations are going to have to invest quite heavily, not just into the technology, but also into training, into governance. I mean, ultimately, AI is amazing, but it cannot be the Wild West. We need the safe, ethical, and a democratized use of those AI platforms. And I think that that's probably the next natural evolution of this area, from massive experimentation and proliferation to a stage of increasing maturity, more structure, more governance, greater embedded, and greater impact through fewer solutions is where I think that the world is probably going to go.
What do you think about the Scarlett Johansson and OpenAI debacle?
Look, I mean, I think
in iambic pentameter, you respond in or sonnets or
poems only.
Yeah, poems only, or your rap. Bring your rap.
Poems only.
Ricky rap out.
Ricky rap out. Look, hang on. I'm actually going to do that, right? Like, so rap on Scarlett Johansson AI debacle. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. Look, I think, like, honestly, like, I think it's a little bit farcical, but I think that it's ultimately, as we were saying before, like the possibility for AI to kind of mimic and create deepfakes of individuals' likenesses, etc., I think is starting to get quite kind of unsettling, right? Like, and I don't know the ins and outs or the why, or like how that kind of ended up being a thing on GPT. But the reality is that there are other circumstances where, like, people have used the likenesses of voices to create, like, for example, there was a Drake song that was like a AI generated kind of Drake song or something else, and it's something which, like I said before, you can do these things and it seems like a bit of a parody. It's quite amusing, but at the same time, it's actually quite like a serious kind of outcome. So I think, we have to be extremely careful with how the technology is enabling us to do this. So here's a rap for you. Yo, it's the ScarJo AI debacle. Headlines made it colossal. Deepfake tech gone wild, turning cool into hostile. They took Scarlett's face, put it in a disgrace, used AI to replace. Yeah, it was all out of place.
And that's a wrap.
Oh my days.
Ricky, this has been really fun. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Very good. No problem. Thank you.
So that was a fun interview with Ricky. It's always fun talking to someone who, is passionate about, or as passionate as we are about, the consumer experience. So that was really fun.
Absolutely. And rhyming. So I just got a text from 50 Cent. He wants Ricky on the next tour. So I've got some news to share.
That was great. That was great. And it was cool to kind of, hear about, I mean, he's obviously passionate about AI and he's really fluent. He's been playing with it for a while. I think, offering some really great advice to other companies or people within organizations that are maybe, cautious about, jumping in and playing and showing that there's a real application for using AI for collaboration and brainstorming and creating new things. Just as, we know this, but it's really cool to hear, about folks within companies that are doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Having worked with Ricky and obviously, all the users across Verve, across Unilever, I mean, there's really just a passion and a big opportunity around not only the internal use cases of this, but also, when you can put it in the consumer's hands and collaborate and co-create. I know, that's just a really big, I don't even want to call it a trend. It's just a move towards partnership, with people to build like the next generation of ideas. And I think that's the really exciting part of all the work that we're doing, is how AI can actually be an enabler of that to happen. So it doesn't have to be pen and paper. It can happen through video, it can happen through AI agents, it can happen through all these different things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, what do you want to make? And, I think outfitting the entire company for that next wave, and also consumers with that next wave, is super exciting. So
yeah, giving everybody, we talk about it all the time, but it's giving people superpowers to enable them to do things that they weren't able to do before. And what's really cool about that is, like, putting this in the hands of people who don't normally visualize things, but giving them the tools to do that. Like, just thinking about the innovations that will come from that is just incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when you compare it to, I guess, just some of the OpenAI stuff on, our whole perspective is, we don't want to take your voice. We just want to make your voice more celebrated and heard and powerful, and I think ultimately that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of AI Powered by People. This show is produced by Steve Berkowitz and brought to you by Verve. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next Tuesday.